Yeah. All right. Talk about Nick. So, do you think Nick is actually? I think Nick's actually worried about this lawsuit.
I was looking at the lawsuits. I have them here. Motion to dismiss. Let me share this. I don't think that Nick is worried because he's dealing with Monty.
I think
and well, because of Randazza and because of Monty's choice of attorney, I think. Let me.
So Nick talked Monty's attorney down, right? So you think Monty's attorney's a fucking like an idiot, like not a really good attorney, like just a dummy.
Mm-hmm.
Then why are you so scared of him? Why would you go out and hire the most expensive lawyer you can hire? Like, why wouldn't you take on Monty's lawyer yourself just to prove that you're not a bitch?
Well, I think that the point is, and the same thing
he's so right, right?
Everyone.
Like, if he's so in the right, you would have to. How could you not, as a YouTuber? This is your career. This is what you do. This is your.
But he's not a defamation lawyer, and I think that's the point. Is like, if I don't know what Nick's.
But if his case is so clear cut, why does it matter?
I don't think it is, and you want to know why?
That's what I mean. That's why I think he's scared.
Did you watch the motion to dismiss hearing at all?
I listened to short version.
Okay, yeah, I think was it 20 minutes?
Mm-hmm. Yes,
that was
so.
Yeah,
I think that was whole. Okay.
Yeah, I think it was the whole thing. Yeah, it was really quick. So then you heard basically Randazza come in and be like, watermelon, cantaloupe. He already had a fucked reputation. And he's a shock jock, right? That's their whole thing. Yes. Well, in their motion to dismiss, which this is the motion to dismiss.
All right, a question on the shock jock. So if you're a shock jock, like say Howard Stern, when he's on air saying all that crazy shit. So if Nick's just having a private chat on someone else's channel and he starts saying the Monty's a pedophile and stuff, could he make the case?
If he's doing it, if he's presenting it to public, yeah.
That's why I think Nick might be a little worried.
Well, so Nick is saying that everything that he said is publicly available knowledge. It's been talked about, it's been theorized for years on the internet, which is probably true.
Yes.
And that he's a shock jock and that he's joking and that he often says, like clearly these are jokes. Again, mostly true.
Yes.
There are 5 or 6 videos that Montagraph listed in the lawsuit where like Nick says he likes little boy in his mouth.
Elephant Montagraph is a child diddler. Montagraph he's on this thing where he's like emailing everybody I know now. Montagraph has always been into sucking little boy cock, which is weird, but that's his thing. Look, I'm not here to stop him. I'm just saying he should probably be shot in the fucking head. Montagraph, you're a fucking faggot. Everybody knows you're a faggot. Clip this all you want and sue me if you want, you fucking faggot, child molesting fucking faggot.
Yes.
That Monty likes to get fisted like nonstop.
Doesn't he tell people that he's part of that he's like an ex-spy or something, a spook or something? He's got all this inside information. Isn't he that dude?
I very explicitly remember Montagraph stating publicly and openly that he routinely f***s himself. And like, I don't know why anybody would do that, but he's like, yeah, I do that. And that's what I love to do. That's actually all I do. And my entire life is just revolving around when the next time I can f*** myself is. I can't get enough of it.
But then Nick is saying in this motion to dismiss, he's saying, I'm a shock jock. This guy's reputation's fucked. So he's saying, let's dismiss it because of anti-slap. But in Colorado's, and this is all the different videos, I actually went through and to their times. Wait, this is the Twitter shit. Okay, so this goes through all of the different videos. It explains all of the videos. And then they're going to get into the law eventually, the legal standard. Basically, this is saying you have to be exercising your free speech in connection with a public issue or an issue of public interest.
It's not a public interest or a public issue, is it?
I can't see how it could be. It says specific. Any written or oral statement or writing made in a place open to the public or public forum.
Would be considered Nick doing this maliciously, not as a matter of news.
But in here, it said deciding an anti-slap motion is a 2-step process. In the first step, the movement must make a threshold showing that the conduct underlying the plaintiff's claim falls within a scope of the anti-slap statute. That is, that the claim arises from an act in furtherance of the defendant's right of petition or free speech in connection with a public issue. If the movement meets this burden, then we proceed to the second step of the analysis, where the court reviews the pleadings and affidavits and determines whether a plaintiff has established a reasonable likelihood of prevailing on the claim. The Colorado courts have interpreted the reasonable likeliness language to mean that anti-SLAPP motions are treated as summary judgment motions rather than something akin to preliminary injunction motion, where the court must weigh competing evidence.
We need to know what the definition of public issue is,
Oh, hold on, they have it.
because that's basically where it's hanging on.
Defendant's statement about Quest addressing allegation, this is plaintiff's complaint, is premised entirely on protected conduct. Defendant's statements were on matters of public concern, so they are arguing that what Nick said is a matter of public concern. Defendant's statements about Quest addressing allegations of pedophilia are on matters of public concern. Quote, generally, a matter of public concern whenever it embraces an issue about which information is needed or is appropriate, or when the public may reasonably be expected to have a legitimate interest in what is being published.
I think Nick might be in trouble.
Yeah.
Because I don't think a judge, like, internet locale, we understand all this stuff, but to a judge, he's going to look at Montagraph and go, he's just an idiot, and you're just trying to make him look like a worse idiot with this. This isn't public. This isn't going to help the public.
Here, Colorado courts show no hesitation in deeming the types of allegations about Quest to be in the public interest. See Miles versus Ramsey. Here's another one, Schoen versus Schoen. Like this is Nick's lawyers writing this.
So here's the question.
He's, in one hand, arguing that this is a matter of public concern because this could be a murderer, this could be a pedo, and then saying, I was joking about all this pedo stuff. So then how the fuck can it be both?
That's 100% correct. Nick's fucked, I think.
This is not a case of Rekieta making an offhanded accusation at a random person on the internet. Quest's extremely concerning videos, sexual aberrance, and likely pedophilia have all been discussed in many communities on the internet for years before Rekieta's statements. Weighing in on an existing years-long discussion regarding a person's pedophilia constitutes a contribution to an existing issue of public concern. Similarly, as discussed in section whatever, Quest is and was a public figure in these topics at the time of the statement.
I don't think the court considers Quest a public figure.
I think he is. He's got 70,000 YouTube subs.
What is considered a public figure? Like, that's not, like, that's YouTube public. That's not, we think that our world is public, but it's not. People who don't YouTube have no fucking clue about anything of it, which is.
But it doesn't matter. It's like
the general public doesn't even know about YouTube.
If you're in a band and a genre of music that I don't know about, you're still a public figure just because I don't listen to you or know about that band or the concerts or the tours, right?
But those bands are playing out in public venues.
He is the YouTube is considered public, right?
I don't know.
I'm
just playing devil's advocate, right?
Yeah. Is YouTube a public?
Because like if I ask my neighbor who's Montagraph.
But that doesn't matter. It's not about that. It's about, has he made himself a public figure? You know what I mean? Like, he's put himself out there saying, I'm going to be live. Here are my opinions. And the public gets to criticize him. He's out there. He has published himself.
Are you a public figure?
Yes, I would think so.
Am I?
Like to the extent that you have published things as...
Like how many videos would it take? One? Like if I went on like Facecam, like, hey, hi, how you doing? And that was the end of the video. Am I now considered a public figure by the court? I'm just curious, like, or do you need multiple videos? Like, you need, like YouTube, you need 1,000 hours. Where's?
There's some way to figure this out.
There, public figure, right there. Legal definition list, public figure, blue.
A public figure is a person of great public interest or fame, such as a politician, celebrity, or sports hero. The term usually used in the context of libel and defamation actions, where the standards of proof are higher if the party claiming defamation is a public figure and therefore has to prove disparaging remarks were made with actual malice. A person may also be considered a limited purpose public figure by having thrust themselves to the forefront of particular public controversies in order to influence the resolution of the issues involved. The determination is made on a case-by-case basis, taking the particular facts into account.
So if we read above that, the definition of a public figure is a great public interest, which I would even consider Nick a great public interest. He's a great YouTube interest.
So Nick might be a limited purpose public figure because of Rittenhouse and Depp.
Yeah, I think so, because he made like the news.
He's thrust himself to the forefront of a particular public controversy in order to influence the resolution of the influence.
Yeah, so he would have made mainstream news based on his YouTube. So once he made the news, I think that might have been the tipping point.
Wow, I think you're right. So I thought, like, if you put yourself out there in any way, like, say you wrote a letter to the editor, like, now for that limited purpose, you're a public figure that is able to be scrutinized. And that,
See, I don't
for
think.
that
I think there's more protections on like the general public than that, because then everybody would be a public figure.
right? It just being in the public square, having your freedom of speech would make you a public figure. Yeah, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah, like if we showed up at the murder scene of like a family of four, and we were getting a picture taken outside with like a whole crowd of people, we wouldn't want to be considered public figures then. And having the media show up at our house going, "Hey, you were there. What did you see?" We would want our privacy. So I think you'd have to be more of a public figure somehow. That's why I was wondering about how many videos would it take to become a public figure. Because I don't think Nick would be considered.
Yeah, except for those few cases that were really big and they're relatively recent, and I would say you might be right.
Because I wouldn't consider Montagraph a public figure at all.
Not by this definitions.
No, he's a YouTube thing, but YouTube isn't public.
Well, it feels like it is.
Like I think of a public figure as if you're walking down the street, you might see a commercial about them or a news article about them on a magazine or something. Like it would come into a field of vision through you. But if you never go to YouTube, Montagraph would never come to it.
Yeah. I'm trying. I searched up, I typed in, are YouTubers limited public figures? And this is your social media, lawbulletin.com. Most social media platforms have brought individuals such as these increased attention and fame. These platforms have undoubtedly made it more difficult for them to establish a defamation claim. Well, because they're becoming public figures, right?
Yeah.
This result is because the U.S. Supreme Court has placed a higher evidentiary burden on public figures or limited purpose public figures who pursue defamation cases.
Yeah, I think that's YouTube. Limited public purpose.
Yeah, the court defines the two types of figures as those who, by reason of notoriety or their achievements or the vigor and success with which they seek the public's attention, are properly classified as public figures. For the most, those who attain this status have assumed roles of special prominence in the affairs of society. Some occupy positions of such persuasive power and influence that they are deemed public figures for all purposes. More commonly, those classed as public figures have thrust themselves into the forefront of particular controversies in order to influence the resolution. Got it. In either event, they invite attention and comment. Unlike non-public figures, those with public figure status must establish that a defendant acted with actual malice in making false statements about the public figure. Although the inquiry into public figure status is fact-specific, one need not be a celebrity known from coast to qualify as a public figure. For example, courts have found general public figure status when someone has notoriety in a particular community or geographic area. And the entire concept of a limited purpose public figure is having some notoriety related to a particular issue, even if a more general notoriety is not present. Although the application of a public figure status undoubtedly varies from jurisdiction to jurisdiction, it is easy to see how one who has achieved a level of notoriety via social media, particularly one who uses social media to air opinions about matters of public controversy, can fall within the scope of being a public figure and thus have an increased burden in establishing a defamation claim.
Sounds like Nick's a public figure and Montagraph's a limited public figure.
That's interesting. So the first thing they're going to have to hammer out, first of all, is should it be dismissed based on Monty's reputation? You should see the stuff that they pulled up to give the court for evidence.
So is Monty considered part of LawTube? Because if this is Nick's things, he would bring Monty into the LawTube community because it has to be part of the community. It has to be known in the community. And Rob knows him. Lawn Lumber knows him. Like, who doesn't know Monty now after Nick? So in the law community where Monty was a lawyer.
But Monty's not a lawyer.
I thought he was.
No, he just represented himself. That's why he got a lawyer this time, because he fucking failed to state a claim in his first case. That's why it was dismissed.
It's like an actual, real
No.
bar-passed lawyer.
No, dude. At one point, he claimed to work for NORAD. He said no. Yeah, Monty's a mess.
On Monty's defense, all of his little sicko videos were part of like movie production and art, and not him as Monty, right?
Exactly. Thank you for saying that. When I was watching this, when I was looking at the evidence that they were presenting, and they're like, if you look at him, they're trying to say that his Umbrella Man video, that's a child. It is not a child. And I don't care if it looks like a great snuff film. It's acting. If you think Monty deserves an Oscar, that's on you. The fact is, it's acting. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's not a child. This bitch has her own IMDb page. She has given her name. People know her. She's made other films. It's not a kid.
But even all of his stupid retarded videos, like the 2 girls, 1 cup stuff like that, that wasn't Monty doing that, was it? He was pretending.
It wasn't. It was the Umbrella Man.
Yes.
How in the world do you say, and Nick's lawyers are arguing this, that those 2 things that we're talking about, somehow, that even fucking a melon, that those things lead to CP, and obviously people would assume you're a pedo. I'm like, if anything, if you watch the fake ice cream Barbie doll thing, he's dressed up as a woman too. So it's not like he's a man trying to make out with a child. That's ridiculous. If anything, the whole video ends in him eating the doll's head. It should end in you thinking he's a cannibal, right?
This is like Nick taking somebody from a Hollywood movie and saying, hey, Vin Diesel murdered Vin Diesel murdered a bunch of people, so he's a murderer in real life.
Exactly. Like, look, if he played this murderer, then clearly he's going to murder somebody. And not only that, if he played this murderer, clearly he's going to get into child shit, and I should be able to call him a pedo, because one crime is
look how
to another.
good his acting
It's bizarre.
was. This is where I think Nick's worried. This is where I think Nick hides.
And he's playing 2 things. He's saying, I think you're right.
Like he was making a laugh about it. He walked into the trap.
But like you just said, who knew who Monty was until he shows up in chat again after all these years? And he's like, oh, look who it is. And everyone's like, who's that? And he goes, oh, this guy, he fucks melons, he fucks himself, and he likes little boy cocks in his mouth. And he's like, that's your reputation, Monty. Like, no, you had to tell us that because no one knew him.
And if you go back and look, all the videos are like, oh, you don't know who Montagraph is? Let me tell you.
Yeah,
no one knew about it. He's like, oh, I'm being sued. I'm like, by who? Oh, let me tell you by.
That's the bizarre thing. A lot of it is like, you might have said too much.
I said it fucking months ago. I think Nick.
I said it the night he said he likes little boy cocks in his mouth. I'm like, wait. Honestly, I said he must have seen something that allows him to say this, because he was so matter of fact that I assumed.
Or he was drunk.
I think that's what it was now. But in that time, I was giving him the benefit of the doubt and assuming who says that unless they for real can back it up? You know what I mean? Like the shit I said about Farron, I said it for months before I decided to show the receipts. She knew. Exactly. She knew what to expect.
And then get caught and still fucking keep going.
Yeah. Well, and I haven't seen the video, but someone said that potentially Cuck, that he was on with Nick and had to tell him, like, hey, buddy, as a lawyer, I think you should stop, when they were talking about Montagraph.
Yeah.
This is just par for the course. It's as if he's the triumph, the insult comic dog of the legal profession. Now, on the other side, we have Mr. Quest, one in which he showed himself and a child's doll consuming what was supposed to be feces and then engaging in, I would say, sexually charged acts. That certainly got him a great degree of notoriety. Over the years, he enjoyed that notoriety and built upon it. At least 71,000 YouTube followers as of today. He has used that fame and used that platform in ways that, frankly, I find disturbing, threatening Dr. Fauci, for example. But there is no doubt here, through all of these pages of exhibits that we show, going back decades, that Mr. Quest is indeed a public figure. Now, my friend, Mr. Schneider, has objected to many of these exhibits as improper, but we are not submitting these for the truth of the matters asserted. Simply that this public controversy has gone on and on and on for more than a decade. So having shown that he is a public figure and he has willfully courted that public figure status, since he's a public figure, he's going to have to show by clear and convincing evidence that indeed Mr. Rekieta stated these things about him, knowing that they were false or with a reckless disregard for the truth. Now, something is not false if it is an opinion, or frankly, if it is a joke, especially if it is labeled as such. Almost every statement that he said, he is qualified as, I'm joking here. If we look at each and every statement, we can find that they are either statements of hyperbole, statements of opinion, or they are backed up by evidence that is in the record that shows them to be true. As Your Honor noted, we have invoked Colorado's anti-SLAPP law. I don't mean to say this irreverently, but this case is a joke. And what I mean is, it's two guys who talk smack on the internet, and one of them has decided to create a lawsuit. I think if you look at somebody who has stepped into the ring here, he stepped into the ring voluntarily, stepped into the ring of fame, stepped into the ring of verbal combat with Mr. Rekieta. And I'm very sorry if he doesn't like how he's been characterized, but he has not been characterized in any way that's tortious.
Our Minnesota Supreme Court said MnStat 55402 as applied to torts cases violates a party's right to a jury trial under Article 1, Section 4 of the Minnesota Constitution. They go into great length on Minnesota law on this subject, stating thus a district court's ruling on anti-SLAPP immunity necessarily decides the merit of the tort case itself. This result unconstitutionally abridges Article 1, Section 4. The legislature can immunize a category of people from lawsuits, but it cannot interpose the district court as the fact finder in actions at law. Defendant seeks to be the apologist for Colorado's anti-SLAPP law. And judge, from my review of the law, its burden is lower than the Minnesota version that was indeed found unconstitutional. Leyendecker is the law of the land, the state of Minnesota. Who is a public figure, a limited purpose public figure, has been briefed extensively. Both sides rely on the Gertz versus Robert Welch decision as a basis. That's a U.S. Supreme Court case from 1974. The number one requirement in order to be determined to be a limited purpose public figure is whether a public controversy ever existed. But for this lawsuit, Your Honor, I would never have heard the name Steve Quest before, and I would not consider anything Mr. Rekieta does, at least in Wilmer, Minnesota, capable of rising to become a public controversy. A public controversy might be funding for building a border wall or defending lawsuits brought by people who were hurt on January 6th, or you can imagine a number of other such instances. But people on the internet, these two people, specifically my client, cannot stand to be a public, or there is whatever controversy there is a public controversy.
Your Honor?
Yes.
Would it be improper for the defendant to have a rebuttal?
Not improper, but I'm not granting that today.
Well, thank you anyway, Your Honor. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Divinity says on YouTube.
Said. Hold on. It's Divinity said.
No, one said.
Divinity said.
He's going to talk about me. Shut up for a minute.
She only
I know,
speaks
sorry.
in past tense.
Yeah, I did say some
Okay.
shit.
She did say stuff.